Welcome everyone to the December meeting of the Finance, Efficiency, Economy, and Sustainability Subcommittee. We'll start this meeting like we always start these subcommittee meetings with the pledge. Councilor Nowakowski, would you lead us in the pledge?
Oh, absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. The members of the subcommittee were provided with minutes from the November 18th, 2015 meeting. Any corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve. I'll second that.
All right, a motion to approve and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item 3, which is the October 2015 Key Phoenix Economic Indicators Report. The material's been provided to my colleagues and was provided to me. Any questions or comments from my colleagues on this item?
We sort of had an update about this yesterday in a way. It was just interesting that again, for those who didn't watch yesterday's meeting, so for the city manager, it sounds like the economy is doing a little bit better than we might have expected when we did our budget probably months ago, 6 months ago or whatever. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know if the economy's doing better than we expected, but the economy is doing better. One of the puzzling things to us about the economy, though, is if you remember yesterday we talked about sales tax collections that have basically been stagnant over 8 years. And so one of the things we're trying to do and figure out with the University of Arizona folks that we consult with is there some fundamental change going on in the way people are buying products that is going to affect our sales tax revenue? We should be getting online sales tax from most online sales, but we don't know if there's something else. And Mr. Barton described, the shift of contracting to retail sales and how that's working. So there's still some puzzling things going on, but generally speaking, the economy is improved, and that is a positive sign.
Our revenues were slightly better than expected. Is that right?
I'll ask Mr. Barton if he'll come and
Wasn't it
speak
about
to
3
that.
million? That's kind of the way yeah.
Councilman Waring, members of the subcommittee, for the current fiscal year, we're actually tracking according to budget. So we haven't adjusted it up or down at this point in time for the current fiscal year. There are a couple of things in our revenue for the current fiscal year that are trending upward, but we expect them to come down. The big one is ETS revenue. We keep talking about ETS revenue.
Yes, is
Our fire ambulance billing revenue. Right now, it's up above where we budgeted, but we budgeted for it to be low because of the state change with the access reimbursement rate. And it's really just a timing thing, so we expect it to start to tail off in the last half of this year and bring it back in line with what we estimated.
Thank you. I think I'm good.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Again, this is great, great information. Really appreciate everyone on staff assembling this, and it really is almost an early warning system for those of us on the council and really our residents in the city too, to either see positive or negative trends in the economy. So appreciate all the work on that. That then takes us to item 4. Which is progress towards our 2020 energy efficiency and 2025 renewable energy goals. Good morning, Ms. Peters.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. I'm here with our Chief Sustainability Officer, Mark Hartman, and Demetrius Lalodakis, also from the Sustainability Office. And what we're going to provide to you today is a progress report on our accomplishments toward energy efficiency and renewable energy goals. Mark can take it from there.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. It's actually a pleasure for me to kind of present. These are a fairly good news report, and it's really, although I'm would be kind of presenting on behalf of all departments, it's really the success of all the departments that have done so much over the last while. So Public Works and Aviation and Water, and have done quite a few of the upgrades. So the various departments, and how this is really facilitated and why we are able to really do this. This summer we implemented Energy Cap. It's a software where we're able to assemble and compile all of our 4,000 utility accounts And we've entered data in them now for the last 5 years. So we have really good data history and able to actually report by department and by building type and by seeing some of the statistics. So it's really able and made it very easy to pull together this information for this presentation. And so this summary is really divided into two, it's just an update about we're at the halfway point of two of our goals. One is that we'd reduce energy use in our buildings, so city-owned buildings that we own and operate, by 20% by the year 2020. And then the other goal is that recognizing the value of renewable energy, that we actually, as on our city property, where we facilitate or support or own renewable energy projects equivalent to about 15% of our property is the goal, and reach that by 2025. And so both those goals, based on when they were adopted, we're about the halfway point. And starting with, first of all, energy efficiency. It's interesting as you look at many of the requests that come to this subcommittee would be ones asking for money for certain projects. Energy efficiency ones were saying, here's projects where we want to give you some money. Here's opportunity to save money. And so savings related to energy efficiency actually reduce our obligations in general funds, or if they're in the revenue departments, it's actually reducing requirements for increasing fees. So real opportunity for energy savings. So it kind of brings those types of things. It has a great opportunity. To date, we've saved over the last, since 2009, $1 million in energy saving projects, so over $1 million. And there's still potential for further savings to meet the 2020 goal. Will actually be up to $2 million more.
Great. And just a question on that, actually, for the city manager. So is that included within the $103 million of efficiency savings?
Mr. Chair, I don't think it is. So I'm looking at Jeff, and we'll go back, and if we haven't, we're going to capture it.
Does that mean we get another cake?
For those of you, he didn't have his microphone on. For those of you at home, Councilman Waring said something about wanting a piece of cake, so I'm not sure what that was about. I think he was referring to, we have had cakes or cupcakes in the past as celebration for all the great efforts of our employees.
Mr. Ray is here. Or cake seems to be.
That's right. Yes, I want to recognize we have Richard Ray with us, who's been with us from the very beginning on the Innovation and Efficiency Task Force. So thank you very much for all your efforts.
So as we look at what are those energy saving projects, so you can see some of the departments as they've done them. Public Works has really modeled that, done in a number of office space, a 23% reduction in energy use per square foot. Pretty significant, some upgrades, and those are primarily a lot to do with lighting upgrades to LED lighting, adaptive lighting controls, where they actually, when people leave a room, those lights go dark, as well as cooling, so it measures around reducing cooling loads and more efficient equipment. And so a good example, as well as looking at parking garages, real opportunities there. Lighting is on 24 hours, so the adaptive controls, even in the one across the street, when there's no cars around, the lighting dims down, and then as cars approach, the lighting goes up. But also they're LED lighting, so they're much more efficient. And then also there's solar on the roof of that one, providing energy during the daytime to provide all the energy needed for that lighting within that parkade. So 72% reduction. So some really good opportunities of things that have happened. And it really bodes well, I think, going forward as we look at aviation's been really aggressively looking at energy efficiency opportunities. They've actually audited all of their facilities. They've completed those audits, and they've actually starting to build into their capital plans how to do upgrades to actually have significant energy savings. So some really good opportunities going forward. The next step here of what we're planning on doing is releasing, and actually this week, planning on releasing a request for information to service providers to see best practices from other cities of how to have a comprehensive look across all of our facilities and look at how we can get further energy savings. We've done some of that, much of the low-hanging fruit. We've done upgrades in most of our buildings, but how can we do a more comprehensive look to achieve that 20% savings? And so we'll look for those answers and report back to this subcommittee with really a plan of an opportunity to perhaps release an RFP to do some specific energy saving upgrade projects for that for next year. Then looking at going on to our renewable energy goal as a status update, we've primarily for renewable energy, it's been all solar to date that we've installed as significant solar projects, both at Lake Pleasant and Aviation. And then out at the landfill this year, the Desert Star, we put out in partnership with APS, where they're using our land on the landfill and paying us lease for that, that they're actually producing quite a bit of energy out at the landfill there. So solar projects, real opportunity, 31.7 megawatts. I'm often in presentations from other cities who proudly say they have 2 megawatts and 3 megawatts of solar power, and I just keep quiet. But we do have a competitive advantage here in Arizona, but certainly we're doing very well in as we benchmark ourselves against other cities and how much solar we've put in. And looking at renewable energy projects as a whole, the last one was showing megawatts. That's actually how much energy it's produced at any given time, but this is really about how much energy it's produced over a year. So what we really need is 84,000 megawatts, which is 84 million kilowatt hours of energy. It's equivalent to about how much 5,000 homes would use. We need that. And what what our current, we're already producing 43 million kilowatt hours of energy from the solars that we have on our sites. So pretty significant. It's more than halfway to our goal. And looking at what opportunities are presented in the council report, certainly we have an allocation of renewable energy starting in 2017 for 50 years from Hoover Dam. That's a very nice allocation of 100% renewable energy. And some really interesting digester gas projects. We've kind of been looking at these and trying to make projects work, but still, if we endure on these projects, it actually is a great source of renewable energy, and there's really some practical applications. We can still move forward. I think there are definite opportunities. We did have a longer list, and this is kind of the ones where probably the most significant opportunities lie. And you can look at actually to achieve a 15% goal. If just either any of the two larger projects, we would almost be at our 15% goal. These compositely would be, if we achieved all of these, it would be at 25% of our total energy equivalent produced through renewable energy. So really, we have potential to even get to 25%. But really, who knows how economic conditions will be and what the market price of natural gas will be for alternative generation and things. But real opportunities around renewable energy.
So on this,
yeah.
if you can go back to that slide. So if all of those projects were realized by 2025, did you say we would then be generating 25% of our electricity from renewables?
Technically, it was 26%, but that's
Okay.
and it's also projecting, assuming that we move towards our 20% energy use target. So as we're lowering our energy
Right,
use
yeah,
in our
they
buildings,
kind of work together.
the
Okay.
15% becomes smaller. So if we actually started really increasing our energy use, then we need more renewable energy to be 15% equivalent. But
And then on that, and of course, as you're probably not surprised to hear me say, very happy to see digester gas and landfill gas on there. That's something that I've been encouraging for many years, and I know there are challenges associated with that. But I don't see any solar on there. My understanding is that we continue to look at additional solar opportunities that would be above the 177%. Is that right?
absolutely. If these were really identified projects that we know, we haven't actually identified a specific site, but we do see, for example, on the new out at Public Works in the waste transfer station, we actually envision having solar there. That site, although we haven't really quantified how much, so it's sort of premature to put it up here. And as well, the price of solar, renewable energy projects, we've done well on solar to date, but the price of solar is continuing to, you hear this story often, but for a lot of our projects, the price of solar has been typically equivalent of 11 cents a kilowatt hour to produce is the value of what it's been historically. And the newest units, the most efficient ones out there, now they're coming in from China at 5 cents a kilowatt hour, almost half of what. So the opportunities, when you look at over the next 10 years, there'll be some really opportunities. And I would say that should be a priority and look at all cost-effective opportunities to produce, just continue to excel on the solar side. So even doubling our solar capacity. I know at aviation, they're also looking at increasing the amount of solar out there as well. So no, I agree with you totally. We're looking at 25% just from these projects, but if, of course, we add a lot more solar and economic solar, then there's a real opportunity to even overshoot that target. So yes, good news. So in summary, really we're at just over 8% savings in our buildings, so just under 12% we need to get to 2020. and a definite opportunity. In the renewable energy, we're about halfway to our target of 15% renewable energy, and I think that as well is looking promising, that we're on track as far as the status update goes. And so our biggest next step will be for both of these, the request for information on the buildings, and then as well, we'll be looking at putting out a similar one next year, request for information if we're looking at how to do some other renewable energy projects on city facilities and looking at where opportunities are. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, great report. Comments and questions from my colleagues. Councilor Nowakowski?
I have a comment. We talked about refitting some of the energy facilities that we have throughout the city. How about our parks? I mean, we drive around our parks. I know my children play soccer, football, and baseball, and sometimes those lights are on way after the kids are done practicing. And I know that we're short-staffed with park rangers and park staff, that sometimes they have a rover that drives around, and sometimes they're on for a couple hours before we can actually turn them off. Is there any type of technology or so that we can actually have timers or sensors or so and turn off those lights, especially on the football, soccer, and baseball fields? And then the other thing is, I remember going out to Jim Waring's district, and we had the groundbreaking of the hiking trail for Mayor Skip Rimza, and we had those solar lights out there, street pole lights. And then somebody was talking to us prior, I think it was about 5 years ago. They were talking about blanket solar panels on light poles, and if we actually used every single light pole in the city of Phoenix, we would be the biggest solar farm in the world. Have we looked into that technology? That was about 5 years ago, and I know that it revolves really quickly, and it might be affordable. I think the biggest problem we had was, how do you retain that energy? Because you would have to put some type of a meter on each city pole, light pole. And is there a way that we can actually create something like that and absorb that energy from those light poles if we had those solar blankets throughout the city?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Councilman. So in regard to the first question, certainly we're looking at LED lights in parks,
Okay.
in addition to our RFP that we're planning on releasing in January for street lighting. For RFP, we're also looking at following that with one looking at how we do in parks. But also regarding just our current process is actually our standard is for new lights and new lighting systems to actually move towards LED lights and lighting controls. So that is definitely a priority going forward for our parks. To look at what to do that, and certainly in park environments, looking at our standards, current dark sky friendly lights as well, making them good with adaptive lighting controls are a great opportunity in parks. And then in regard around solar, the best opportunity for solar is, instead of each individual having a small scale solar on every single pole, and then having an inverter and a meter and and timing and having battery storage in order to release that, it's much better to kind of have, or more cost effective, to really have a utility scale where having them all in one place with one inverter and one meter. And so those are really the best types of projects, as opposed to kind of having a project to install solar on every single pole. It's much better and easier to install, just ground level, utility size scale. So that would kind of, we have land and opportunity to do that, particularly at landfills and retired landfills. So great opportunity.
You know, I noticed that a part of our plan is to have our city be more walkable, rideable, and at the same time shade. And that's one of the big things we're looking at. Have we looked at maybe creating, instead of trees, using solar panels along the sidewalks or along our new walkways, bike paths, to generate that electricity or that energy and actually provide shade at the same time? I know we do that for parking structures, that it provides great shade for, especially at a Burton Bard Library in my district. I mean, it's just amazing. And some of our parking garages too. Have we looked at maybe jogging paths, or even within our parks, creating those shade structures using solar panels, or maybe even a mile radius bike route where we can actually have shade along the walkway and bike routes in the future? So
Mr. Chair and Councilman Nowakowski, I like how you're thinking. Certainly, that's a very good strategy that you're describing. The tree and shade master plan, a very important part of that, it's not forgotten, is the shade part of that. And solar does provide, we found shade like in parking lots on a top level parking. It actually, where normally you'd be baking on that top level, but having solar there, you're generating electricity. So it's actually a benefit to people who are parking there. But even around providing shade opportunities, like if, for example, there's some discussion about how can we provide shading and actually a great walkable area along Central Avenue where it actually creates a great place. I know out at the ASU campus, they'd have these really hot, open concrete pads. No students would be there at all, just empty chairs. They created this solar shading over top of that, and immediately now, every day, it's just packed with people because it becomes this great space for doing that. So, shading is a really important part of walkability. So tree and shade and the opportunities for solar are really good. And the nice thing about it is solar shading in certain places is very good because you don't need to trim it. It doesn't necessarily need, you don't have issues around that, and it's a really nice fixed surface, and it's a very pleasure to have. So no, definite great opportunity for those, and you could have bus stops with lighting. Just one other reference to that, around in parks and remote areas, generally a completely LED light pole is far more expensive than just installing an LED light. The energy used for one that's connected to the grid, the energy used would be less than the cost of that pole of just putting, but where you'd have to actually have a remote location where you'd need to trench and put in wires and connect it to the grid, it's much more cost effective just to install a solar. So grid opportunities. So for some of our remote locations, those are ideal to have them, but they're too expensive. If you already have easy access to grid electricity, it's much better to connect and just install LED lights for those.
And just to amplify on that, so Arizona State University has been really trying to coalesce around the idea of the Central Avenue. They call it the central idea. One part of it is a significant solar shading project, trying to connect the Arts District to at least Hance Park, if not south, using shaded walkways which double as solar panels. So you're probably going to hear more about that. I've heard a little bit from Duke Ryder, who's working on the project, but they call it the central idea, and it involves that solar idea with it.
Yeah, and Mr. City Manager, I think that's a very exciting project. But just to kind of dovetail, Councilor Nowakowski, I think a great opportunity for doing some of this shade and tying in with the parks is in your district at Hance Park. I think it could be a wonderful opportunity. So generating more energy savings plus some real benefits for the park goers, and also too. Something that we're starting to see in that same vein, of course, we're trying to help things along in city facilities, but I've always thought that this will really be a success when it starts to go to the private sector, and we're seeing that now. If anyone's been to I-17 and Bell Road at the Fry's grocery store, there's a huge solar structure there. And in fact, my understanding in talking with the folks at Fry's is, yeah, there is some energy savings created by the solar, but in large part that's being driven by the covered parking, and the thought is that that's going to drive more customers to use that grocery store. And lo and behold, now at 7th Street and Glendale at the Safeway as well, they have a solar powered covered parking structure there as well. So we're really starting to see this take hold throughout the city, and I think it's very exciting. Other comments or questions from my colleagues? A couple of things. First of all, I want to make sure that we recognize Demetrius, who, when he and I first started working on these solar issues, solar opportunities together, I think there was about 50 kW in solar on city structures. And so now we look at this presentation and there's 31 megawatts. So Demetrius, you've been in this from the very beginning, and thank you because of your expertise and your hard work. We've been able to accomplish this. And if Rick Neymark were here, I would thank Rick as well. I know there are a lot of people involved in this, but Demetrius, I just want to thank you for your and your hard work on it. And it's really a great accomplishment when you hear, like Mark said, that these other cities are bragging about 2 megawatts. Of course, I'm always envious of Michael Crow and ASU, I don't know, they're up to like 50 megawatts or something now, so they continue to be the trailblazer, but we're right there behind them, thanks to you and the whole team. So I want to make sure that I had commented on that. You know, my takeaway from this presentation is we really do need to seriously look at adjusting our renewable goals. I mean, we're well on our way to accomplishing the 15%, but I think we ought to look at something like, if my colleagues are interested, maybe shooting for something like 25%. I think it's, stretch goals are good, but based upon this, I think it's something, and I see you all appear to still be smiling, not too many frowns, so I think that's something we ought to look at, and as well, and Mark, I know you come from a background on a lot of the energy efficiency, and so I'm really excited about that. What's been accomplished, but even more so what we'll be able to accomplish moving forward. So you certainly have my full support. Because again, like I like to say to folks, for me, it's not about saving the world. I mean, that's great if we can save the world, but it's really about saving money. And you talk about $1 million a year, that's the money that's already been saved, but I think we can go much further with that. So, again, I appreciate the presentation here. I am, very supportive of your efforts. Want to congratulate you on what's been accomplished up to this point. And I would just encourage folks to go out and go on to the website, phoenix.gov, and they can contact our office and give them all the details here. I mean, these are really remarkable numbers. And again, dollars and cents that have been saved because of some of the lower hanging fruit. And now we're going to have to move up on the tree a little bit, but I know that this team is up to it. And I, my sense is throughout all this, the council's been supportive of these efforts. So I assume we'll see more of that support moving forward. So unless there's anything else from my colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to just thank you for recognizing Demetrius actually had a plan to do that, and I was figuring out how to work it into the answers to one of the questions. But I did want to acknowledge, as I gave credit to various departments that have been very active. Demetrius just recently is 25 years here at the city, and it doesn't matter where or what project I look at. I see his hand has been in many of them, and I do want to acknowledge that he's been a definite force in the energy efficiency and renewable energy projects throughout the city, and wanted to recognize as you did here as well. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to our next item, item 5, which is the Service Line Warranty of America Water and Sewer Line Program. So this is the one where we get to explain to the viewers what that letter is that they get in the mail. What is this all about?
Yes, correct, Chairman Gates. Good morning, Chairman Gates and members of the subcommittee. We're here to update you on the optional water and sewer line program for residents. And one number that you will hear mentioned a couple of times during our presentation today is the number $1 million. And that's because we're pleased to announce that the program, since its inception, has generated $1 million in revenue for the city's general fund. And also, and most importantly, it's helped generate about $1 million in savings for residents. So with me today is management intern Nick Valenzuela, and he's going to walk you through the presentation today.
Chairman Gates, members of the subcommittee, thank you for having me here today. My name is Nick Valenzuela. I'm here to provide you a quick update on the city's marketing partnership with Service Line Warranties of America. So as you may recall, the city launched the program in August of 2012 to provide our residents with an optional external residential water sewer line warranty. What this warranty does is it covers any sort of repairs that would occur along the portion of that external line that runs from the foundation of the home to where it connects to the city utility. As you can see above, it does connect from the foundation home, sometimes all the way out into the street. Service Line Warranties does conduct 2 marketing campaigns throughout the year, one in the spring and one in the fall. Those campaigns are completely outsourced, as well as the program is completely outsourced to Service Line Warranties, so there is no cost to the city. However, what the program does do is it generates general fund revenue for city programs and services. So moving on, we just want to take a quick look at our enrollment. We currently have approximately 36,000 residents enrolled in the program. Historically, that number has been around 35. However, we have seen an increase this year in 2015. So just taking a quick look, there's a month-by-month comparison between 2014 and 2015. As you can see, our main months are March and April, and September, October. Those are the 2 months that the Service Line Warranties does conduct their marketing campaign. So as Tony had mentioned, the program does generate general fund revenue, and that is done through a 12% royalty for every warranty subscription, and that is received by the city every quarter. So to date, we have generated just more than $1 million, and that does consist of the warranty subscription royalties as well as additional one-time payments we received when we entered into the contract. So while the program does provide general fund revenue, it's also very important that this program provides a value for our residents, and we look at that measurement through a couple of aspects. The first one is how much have we saved saved for our residents. To date, approximately 3,100 claims have been filed with service line warranties, resulting in a savings of $1.1 million. As you can, yes, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the plug for Moon Valley there in the slide.
It gets better, don't worry.
I think Tony had something to do with that. Oh, it gets better, good.
As you can imagine, the repairs.
can't get better.
Exactly, I agree.
As you can imagine, these repairs do cost from a couple $100s to a few $1,000s. So the residents who have enrolled in this service and have used this service have greatly benefited from that. Another aspect to the community is that it utilizes our local plumbing contractors, such as Moon Valley Plumbing. So they do contract with plumbing contractors that are licensed through the Arizona Register of Contractors and are in good standing with the Arizona Better Business Bureau. So again, keeping the money local, putting something back into the community. And one final aspect we want to ensure is that Service Line Warranties is providing quality customer service for our residents. So for every claim that is filed, the residents are asked to complete a survey measuring two aspects: telephone experience and on-site rep service. On-site rep service is, again, the service that is completed by our local plumbing contractors, so that is a big one. Telephone experience is currently receiving a 4.5 out of 5. On-site rep service is receiving a 4.7 out of 5. 98% of the survey respondents have recommended the program to others, with 97% indicating they received a good, very good, or excellent customer service. One final note, I have received very, very few residential concerns up in the city manager's office regarding the program. Of the few that I have, I just want to thank Jessica Long with Service Line Warranties. She has been very responsive in handling those concerns, sometimes within an hour, to the full satisfaction of our customers. So I just want to thank her and her partners over there for doing a tremendous job. With that, I want to thank you again for your time today, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Questions or comments from my colleagues? Councilman Waring?
We're not voting on this today? Is that right?
No.
Okay. People have had concerns, when we first started this program, people had concerns about the use of the Phoenix logo on the letters and so forth. There was confusion. Is this something from the city? I think letters have gone out recently because I believe I received another one myself. By recently, I mean the last couple of months. So that's part of the deal, is that they use our logo? Because it looks like official city correspondence when I receive it myself.
Yes, Chairman Gates and Councilman Waring, it is an official partnership, so they are using the city's logo.
People do have an issue with that, and I understand that issue. Receiving it myself, not necessarily expecting it, obviously knowing what it is once I take a look at it, but I can see why people think that, and I'm just going to say I have objection to using the logo in that fashion. I think I've mentioned this before, but want to put that on the record again because I told people I would.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilman Nowakowski.
I just want to tell you what a great presentation, and it shows the leadership that we have and the upcoming leadership in the city of Phoenix. So thank you for your presentation. The other thing is we did receive some concerns about the logo. Is there a way to just maybe clarify it's supported by or something like that, where it's not just the two logos up on top,
We certainly can.
so that people can identify that we support it, that's not one of our programs? Or
Yes, I believe, and I don't have a copy of that in front of me, but I believe it does say in partnership with, but we'll take a look at that wording again before the next mailing goes out in the spring.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilman Waring?
I just want to say that I'm not blaming Nick for the confusion about the logo. He was not here. It was a nice presentation. Not bad. He gets up there, gives a presentation, intern, and then. So I will criticize his use of historically, since this only goes back to 2012. I thought that was kind of a broad. Maybe from an intern perspective, that seems like World War II or something. But apart from that, it was excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only logo I remember that Nick put up there was Moon Valley Plumbing, so I don't know. We actually have a public comment here, unless, were there any other comments from my colleagues? Okay, Greta Rogers?
I just want to ask, is this a program that you plan to expand
Could you, Greta,
incrementally to the whole city?
Greta, would you mind, just because I'd like to have the viewers to have the benefit of your question?
In my hat.
Thank you.
The Christmas outfit, I love it.
You're ready for formal today, I think.
But Santa Claus came without his beard or his cap on.
Ms. Rogers?
I just want to ask, is this, I'm not familiar with this, and that's perfectly all right. But is this a program that you intend to expand citywide? Why only 36,000 people?
Yes.
That isn't even a third of the city.
Thank you for the question.
Chairman Gates,
Yes.
members of the subcommittee, the 36,000 is our current enrollment. Since the inception of the program in 2012, we've enrolled 64,000. Compared to other large cities, we are currently 3% above the average. Also keep in mind, this doesn't go out to every resident in the city of Phoenix. This is only for our water customers, which I believe is around 400,000. So there is the option in the summer of 2017 is when the current contract is up, and we can go out for an RFP in January of 2017. So we can see if there are any other options as well as to include expansion of the program.
So there could be more people involved in the program. It's just these are the people who have chosen to participate, but the letter's been sent out, like you said, to all the water and sewer
Correct.
customers.
And as I had mentioned, it's 64,000, and in that time, it's at 36,000. People enroll, people re-enroll. They no longer need the service. It just depends.
Yes. Councilman Waring.
To this point, I think that's the crux of, I guess I'll include Councilman Nowakowski. It sounds like he got complaints too. You know, people who get these letters, it seems like it's official correspondence. The 36,000 chose to be involved in the program, but obviously you don't choose to pay taxes. You don't choose to pay your water bill. You don't. So if you get to some on city letterhead, the implication was some people feel like this is something they have to pay and so forth. And that's my objection. And having seen the letter, there is something about what they're saying. It's not like that's a ridiculous assertion. When you receive that letter, I do a double take. I've received several because I'm not in the program. I definitely do a double take myself, even though I quickly divine what it is. So if I didn't have the benefit of being on the council and knowing what it is, I might think something differently. So, and give it a little more scrutiny, which is again fine, but the logo definitely rankled, and I think that's why.
And we do receive those phone calls often just to confirm that it is a real company, it is a real program. And we can work with Jessica over at Service Line Warranties to see if we can include better language concerning that it is an optional program, that you're not automatically enrolled in it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I don't know if anyone else got this, but I actually received something recently from APS that's kind of similar to this. So I think APS is partnering with respect to, issues with electricity, and where there's a question, where people may not understand that they're actually on the hook. So I don't know if anyone else has seen that. It might be interesting to get some of their perspective on how their program is going. Other questions or comments? Good discussion, good points raised by my colleagues, and thank you again for the presentation. And sounds like in 2017, the
Yes.
council will have the opportunity to decide whether to continue forward with the program. So thanks so much. It takes us now to item 6, which is the office space study update, Police Professional Standards Bureau recommendations. Ms. Macron, you got this one too.
I do. Good morning again, subcommittee members. So we have been before the subcommittee a couple of times presenting on the citywide office space study that we've conducted. Today we're here to talk with you about the Police Professional Standards Bureau. We mentioned it a couple of months ago when we were here, and now we have some more specifics. Police Professional Standards Bureau has about 41 employees, and they're currently leasing space downtown. Their lease expires in September of 2016, so we took a look at our city inventory to see if there would be an opportunity to relocate those 41 employees into a city-owned building. There is an opportunity, and Historic City Hall is what we are recommending that group moves into. That would be an annual savings of about $300,000. So the recommendations today is that we don't renew the lease with the leased facility for Police Professional Standards Bureau, that we relocate the 41 police employees to Historic City Hall by September of 2016, and then we will be achieving an annual savings of about $300,000, and that's all part of the citywide office space study. that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Questions or comments from my colleagues? This seems like a no-brainer. Thank you very much for bringing this forward. It's great. We have the HR building that we're looking at, this one, and obviously others. Are you continuing to look at other opportunities as other leases come to an end?
We are, Chairman Gates, and we will be before the subcommittee in the early of 2016. Finance real estate section continues to look at that area, and so do we as part of the office space study, so we will be back before this subcommittee with other options as well.
So the follow-on to this is that currently we have the city audit department in Historic City Hall. We would relocate the city auditors over to the space where Channel 11 is now. There's a huge, if you ever go back into that studio, there's a lot of cubicles that are no longer occupied with reduction in staffing over the past years. So the auditor would move to the Adam Street garage space,
That is correct.
freeing up the space for professional standards.
And currently at Historic City Hall, floors 3 and 4 are vacant, so there is opportunity there.
That's great. Well, if there aren't any comments or questions, I would entertain
You have a card.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I have a card here from Greta Rogers. Please come on down.
This is a subject that's been dear to my heart for a couple of years because we've got people scattered all over this city, and we've got more empty space in this building, and Calvin Good that is being electrified and unused, which is a total waste of money. So I'm glad we're making some progress. But I have a question. Have you designed a working plan to consolidate, where practicable, to 200 and 201, or whatever the number is across the street, with an analysis, a plan, a cost savings or increase, and time production efficiency expected, return of savings with a time future plan? I mean, we bring these things up and it's kind of like, oh, I like that one, I'll pick it off the shelf. And we need to have a plan for execution in a timely, efficient, and cost-saving manner.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
So the two biggest parts of this now we've talked about with this subcommittee in the last month. The first one is disposing of the HR building, moving the HR employees out of that building to Calvin Good. We're going to free up space there by moving our equal opportunity staff to
The
the
15th
15th floor.
Here at City
So
Hall.
we're reshuffling some of those, but these are really the two biggest facilities in the downtown that we have that we're moving. The HR building and the Professional Standards Bureau lease at 111 West Monroe. That's kind of our biggest opportunities. Then we do have a few other scattered facilities that Tony is working on that'll be the follow-on to that.
Correct. And by relocating just as a reminder, by relocating the HR employees over to the Calvin Good building, we are able to then put the HR building on the market to dispose of that building.
Super. Well, again, in the spirit of Ms. Rogers' comments, I think we need to move this forward, and to the extent that we could even be given maybe in early next year. Here's another action item, but also these are the 4 or 5 or 6 others that we'll be looking at and be evaluating would be helpful.
Yes.
Okay. All right. At this point, I think it would be timely if someone would like to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now that takes us to item 7, which is call to the public. I don't believe we have any cards for call to the public. Item 8, future agenda items. I think those were provided to my colleagues here. We have several future agenda items. Any additional items that my colleagues would like to see on the subcommittee agenda? Yes, Councilor Noakowski.
Seeing how downtown's growing, I'd like to look into some type of parking solution. Seeing that in the future, that lot 23 might not be available to do events and stuff. And now we're looking at Margaret Hans Park being that central park per se for City of Phoenix, and there's no parking around there. Even to jump on the light rail, there's no parking around McDowell or even Roosevelt. So if we can look for some type of parking solution and also look at the revenues that the meters are providing in the downtown area with the new meters that we have, and maybe there's somehow, some way using that revenue and looking at creating new revenue through a parking garage or a partnership, private partnership with someone to build a parking garage, maybe some apartments around that parking garage, or I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I think we should start looking at that until, we're looking at probably another couple thousand apartments or condos in the downtown area, and there's going to be a lack of parking.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's something, and maybe that's something that goes on downtown and then here for information as well or something, so I think we could discuss that.
Absolutely.
Big issue, for
Yeah.
sure.
Great point as well. We should be staying ahead of that.
Any other future agenda items? All right, if not, then with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Golf course.